Alright, welcome to the second part of Chapter 2, Lesson 4. Part 2, the sim, making comparisons with the sim. So for this part, we're going to use the sim to collect quantitative data. That's written here. That's basically data with numbers, where we compare a healthy body to a body with a condition that you've read about in the past. The goal is to use these numbers to see how cells store glucose, oxygen, amino acids, and other molecules compared to one that has these diseases, so we can get a better idea of what kind of disease Elisa has based on her data. To start, I've picked a very simple disease, asthma. This is one we're all familiar with. We've seen it, we know how it looks, and we've talked about it in our lessons. The first thing I put is that the medical condition I'm learning about is asthma, because that's the one I've read about. You may have read about a different one, in which case you would go down and pick it. You could have read about anemia, diabetes, or pancreas injuries. Once you've selected this, you're ready to make the remaining predictions. Making predictions in science is a big part of what we do. It's how we hypothesize. It's part of the scientific method we talked about in the first week. So part 2. It affects these molecules that the human body needs to function, it being asthma. So asthma affects this part of the human body. Well, we know it affects the lungs, and the lungs breathe in oxygen. So to know it affects oxygen. You can also pick glucose or amino acids for different diseases. In the cells of the body with this condition, I would expect to see fewer oxygen molecules than in a healthy body. And then you would explain why you expect to see fewer in the simulation. In this case, my example would be, I expect to see fewer oxygen molecules in an asthma body than in a healthy body, because asthma means that the person has asthma and their lungs contract when they breathe, which means they breathe in less oxygen than normal healthy people would. You should write something similar or something different if your disease is different, but you need to use clear reasoning when explaining why you made these predictions. Alright, with the predictions out of the way, we're ready to move on to the second step. You can do that by pressing this next button. I know there's 4 in total because it says 1 of 4 here, so don't forget to go through all 4 steps. In the second step, I'm going to launch the metabolism simulation and follow the directions written here. To do this, I'm going to click Metabolism Simulation. While that's loading, I check in on each of these steps and make sure I know what I'm doing. So part 1, select a healthy body, select test, and then feed the healthy body 2 corn, 2 fish, and 2 sandwiches. So I click on the simulation, and once it's loaded, I follow the directions, clicking healthy body. I click test because I'm running tests, and I give it 2 corn, 2 fish, and 2 sandwiches. And then I press play. As you can see, it's moving pretty slowly, but thankfully the instructions tell us very clearly we can make the test faster by changing the speed of the simulation before we record the results in a data table. So let's do that. So first I need to change the speed, and then I can watch the results go by in real time on this graph. You can see when they add corn, or fish, or other things here, and you can see important information like the heart rate, that's the red one, that's the number of beats per minute, so how fast their heart is beating. The breath rate, how fast they're breathing, the cellular respiration, which is how much energy the cells are making, the activity level, which we've set to walk, but we could set it higher if we wanted, and the stored glucose molecules along the way. In addition to that, the sim is also tracking these 4 things: glucose, amino acids, oxygen, and the number of oxygen taken in per breath. It's important to track this because this is what the lesson is looking for in the trials. Now before I let that finish, and it will take a while to finish, I've actually recorded the results of my own first trial. You should not use these numbers. You should use your own trials and do it twice to see what you get and record it along the way. But you can see here it says total glucose molecules, total amino acids molecules, total oxygen, and the oxygen taken per breath, which are recorded all here in this corner. Once you've done that and recorded it, you're ready to start it over and do it a second time before moving on. Don't forget to take a screenshot, and if you've forgotten how to do that, you can easily find that out with Google by saying, how do I take a screenshot on my Chromebook? You'll notice it comes up just like that, and you can learn how to do it yourself. Alright, with that said, let's move on to the next part. In the next part, I'm looking at the testing of body with a condition. I'm going to launch the metabolism simulation again. So let's go ahead and close this. We'll relaunch it, and we'll continue to follow the directions. We're going to select the body with condition that we've read about. In this case, the condition I read about is asthma. So once this loads, I'll select asthma and follow the remaining directions. The remaining directions tell me to feed the human body 2 corn, 2 fish, and 2 sandwiches, and they do that because they want the conditions for the healthy body and for this asthma body to be the same. So that way I can track real differences without wondering if the food intake was different. I'm going to set the activity level to walk. I'm going to press play to begin and then watch the graph and then record the results again. So I'm basically repeating what I did in the previous section, but with a different type of body. In this case, I'm going to choose asthma because, like it said, that's the one I read about. So I'm going to begin the asthma level. I'm going to test it. I'm going to feed it 2 corn, 2 fish, 2 sandwiches. I'm going to play it and set the speed to 2 times so that it goes quickly. That way I can get through this quickly and watch the graph as it goes. Once this graph is finished, and it will finish around 200 time units, you can check the time units by going to the live view and seeing it over here. I'm going to record the results again. Glucose, amino acid, oxygen, and oxygen per breath. And I can see that over here too. Glucose, amino acid, oxygen, and oxygen per breath. And don't forget to put the disease you had on as well. That way I know what disease you're looking into, so when I look at your numbers I can tell if they're right or not. When you're done with that, you're ready for the final part, which is to upload 2 screenshots, one of the healthy body and one of the body with a condition. Again, feel free to Google how to take a screenshot if you don't know already. Once you're done, remember to hand in your work so that I can grade it, and you're ready to move on to the third part, the student-to-student discussion.